Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to TSK F1. My name's Rich and I'm here with the latest in F1 news for your little roundup in the morning. Please do remember to smash a like on the stream and also subscribe to the channel if you want a daily dose of news at 9 a.m. UK time for about half an hour. Get involved, guys, get in the chat and just get involved with the community. I'm going to be posting extra videos as well, so do get involved, guys. The first thing really that I wanted to talk about this morning was Lando Norris. We've got him coming out and talking about how ill he actually was during the Brazilian Grand Prix weekend. Just how much fluid he lost, how much weight he lost, and how he felt during the Brazilian Grand Prix. And that he would have struggled, well, he struggled really badly in the sprint race, and that he would have been in a really bad condition if he had finished the actual feature Grand Prix. Obviously, he finished early with mechanical issues. I'm not exactly sure what was the reason for the retirement. If anyone in chat does know, but he lost all power, ground to a halt near the end. But a quote from Lando saying he was in a bad way. I didn't eat or drink for 2 days and I lost 3.5 kilos. I really struggled a lot. Everyone thought I was fine on the Friday because of how I performed, but I really wasn't. I could get a little bit of food in me before the race, and I could get some fluids inside me, which was the most important thing on such a hot day. I'm sure if I didn't break down, I'd make the end of the race, but I'd be in quite a bad condition. It was just engine failure, was it, Rob? Cheers, man. So, Lando Norris there losing 3.5 kilos before the weekend due to food poisoning, and then being in a really bad way after the sprint, and then going on and doing the GP. It does show you what level of athlete these Formula One drivers are, doesn't it? Because I'm not going to lie, if I was ill enough to lose 3.5 kilos, I'm not jumping even in a go-kart and doing laps. So I think it just shows how fit they are and the mentality of them, that they get into the car and still do this. I need some food poisoning. Is it bad that I thought that as well, John? I need a bit of food poisoning. No, I don't need a bit of food poisoning. No, I really, really don't. But it shows how fit they are, and it makes me remember Mark Webber. I think at Fuji, people might correct me in chat, where he was literally saying he needed to box, and then because he was ill, and as he's on radio, he is audibly ill, shall I say, because, I mean, it's early. I doubt people are eating the breakfast, but there might be. So he was audibly ill over the radio. And I was just trying to think, let me know in chat what you think, but memories you have of drivers being ill during the race weekend and still carrying on. Because this season, actually, Lando's been ill quite a few times, hasn't he? I think this is like the third or fourth time. So, yeah, it just made me think, when have drivers, other drivers been ill? Japan 2007, was it, Rob? I'm just going to start a poll in chat as well, to tie in with our title story. We are going to cover this in a little bit, but should Binotto go from Ferrari is today's poll. So get involved in that, have your vote, and we will get to that story. We will get to that story for sure. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. So, yeah, it's just a little thing. He really was very ill. Longevity, by the end of the sprint, I was in a very bad condition, Lando's saying. So if he'd have actually made the end of the GP, I don't know what the actual temperature was, and obviously it's hotter for them in the fire suits and everything in the cockpit of the Formula One car. That'd be rough with food poison. Oh, it'd be rough with any kind of illness, wouldn't it? Very rough indeed. I wouldn't fancy it. I wouldn't fancy it, that's for sure. Second story. Jenson Button, he was on Sky on their. Should there be rules on driver illness safety wise? That's not a bad shout, you know. You'd think so, but how would they test that? But I get what you mean because they're not maybe fully alert and things, right? So it does make sense to maybe does make sense maybe. So I think the show is called Any Driven Monday or something from Sky Sports, and Jenson Button is one of their pundits, isn't he? So he was on there and he was talking about the Red Bull Max Checo situation, and he kind of said it's of their own making, or it sounds that way, and I can't really disagree with him because he cited what Max said that he had already discussed it with them and they already knew. So why did they ask him again? He wasn't really disagreeing from the quote I've seen. He wasn't disagreeing that they asked him. He was saying it's Red Bull's fault that they didn't properly clear it. It's as if they've taken, this is my input. It's as if they've taken what Max said, whatever he said previously, as kind of like, it didn't mean much or almost a tantrum or something like that. They haven't fully taken heed of what he said and they haven't taken it seriously. So then when they've asked him again and he's reacted badly, they're left with this situation. And he was just really saying about how he feels that it's of their own making, and I can't disagree with that really. With what we can see as fans and what's gone on at Red Bull, Max said immediately that he had told them, which is fine. Like, I mean, if you remove the fact it's Formula One, if you go to there is employers, he's spoken to them about some kind of grievance that he's had. Everyone's theorizing it's to do with Monaco, but whatever the issue is, he's spoken to his employers and then they've asked him to do something he specifically said he wouldn't do again. Like in a normal day, in a normal job, you'd be annoyed at that. And I'm not defending how Max reacted, but I kind of do agree that this does seem a little bit of Red Bull kicking it. What do they say? Kicking the can down the road? Well, I don't know what the saying is. It's something like that, but it's almost as if something happened. There was a flashpoint. Max aired what his issue was, and the kind of dealt with it in that moment, but didn't actually deal with it. Kicked it down the road, maybe thinking it wasn't going to be an issue and that Max would calm down. Who knows? And then it's come back to sort of bite them PR wise, hasn't it? With the Brazilian Grand Prix. So it was just, I thought it was quite, for once, on Sky Sports, it wasn't a lazy take. It was a actual, Jensen had thought a little bit deeper about it. But I actually generally kind of like Jensen. I think he's sound, and I think he normally offers quite a balanced insight in things. When he does speak, he's all right. But yeah, I kind of agree with that. Really, if Max has spoken to them and they haven't dealt with it, it's on Red Bull, really, isn't it? It's on Red Bull. Please do make sure you've smashed a like on the stream, guys. It really, really helps. And do make sure you've hit that subscribe button as well. Forgotten what I've put third. George Russell. Pretty much, Jonathan. Pretty much when I saw Karun Chanduk's analysis, I was just like, dude, how are you getting paid for that analysis? For that, it's embarrassing. But George Russell, really, it's just a little tidbit. I mean, we spoke about him and having a great weekend in Brazil, which I think everyone agrees with that. I don't think many people would disagree unless they're a really hardened Red Bull fan. I don't think anyone would really disagree. It's always nice to see a driver get the first Grand Prix victory. He got the sprint, but I was left like, is that really a Grand Prix victory? But what he said was, well, there's a couple of bits here. It's been revealed that there was a water leak for a substantial time on George's car, and that he might not make the end of the Grand Prix, but there wasn't much Mercedes could do, so off he went, sort of thing. So there was a genuine risk that he wouldn't make the end of the Grand Prix. He did. The car lasted. I'm not sure if it's done any lasting damage to the power unit in any way or anything untoward that will move on to Abu Dhabi. We'll find out in the coming days, I should imagine. But that's come out. That's come out. And apparently it was really touch and go, as you said there. John saying, like the stream, close the chat, and then reopen the chat. So please do that, guys, and get involved in the chat. It was a water leak. Yeah, that's what I just said. Yeah, that's what I just said. It was a water leak. Did I not say it was a water leak? Did I say something else? Did I just say something else? Anyway. So that actually wasn't what I was doing this, but that just fired in my head that I'd read that yesterday, that there was a water leak on his car, and they just had to let him go for it, basically. But he basically had some quotes as well, where he was talking about having Lewis Hamilton as a team, and that with Lewis Hamilton as a teammate, you really, really have to be on it, because Lewis is on it every single, well, definitely in the race, but every single session. And that George was saying how he knows he has to be at his best to beat Lewis Hamilton, which I thought was a nice nod. And it was an interesting one, because would Lewis have beaten him? Now, I think over a season, still, Lewis, just with experience, beats George, but I think George is a very special talent. I've made no secret of my thoughts on that. I've thought that for a long time. But I like the vibe that Lewis and George have got. Now, will that break down next season if they do have a championship contending car? Because George has already shown he can be hella consistent. He can be up there. You know, Nico and Lewis were basically best mates until they really weren't best mates anymore. And a lot of people, I think, incorrectly put stuff on Lewis Hamilton. I think, look, I liked a bit of Nico Rosberg, but even I'll admit, you know, you can tell he was hardly helping the situation. It definitely wasn't all Lewis Hamilton. And when you look back at Lewis Hamilton and Alonso, I'm an Alonso fan. It wasn't all it wasn't all Lewis Hamilton back then either. They were as bad as each other. So it's an interesting one as to whether their relationship will stay as nice as it is right now. They're both working together to get Mercedes back where they want them. Are they going to stay so nice with each other? You know, probably not, but I suppose we'll see. But yeah, he was talking about how on it you have to be with Lewis Hamilton as your teammate every session. And that he knew in the race, if he made one mistake, Lewis was driving past him. Simple as that. Once he was behind him, he knew if he made even the slightest error, Lewis Hamilton would be past him, and that would be it. So, I think it's a nice nod to Lewis, while also he was obviously talking about his emotions and things like that from the victory. Now, this story. Now, we do have a vote going in chat, and at the moment, should Binotto go is at 55% yes. Now, this is the title story today, because while it's not, I don't think it's not being massively reported, but yesterday it was coming out from Italian sources, apparently well-connected Italian sources, that Ferrari are looking to replace Binotto. And I'm going to be, I'm not making this up, so I'm going to make sure I'm quoting this correctly. A journalist called Leo Torini, a long-time Maranello journalist, has come out with this on an Italian publication, that Ferrari are close to replacing, that it's not in the works, that mentally they're close to making the choice that they need to replace him, sort of thing. It's already being chatted about. Basically. because what they're citing is the tactical ineptitude. I think everyone knows that. Look, Binotto a couple of weeks ago, actually more recently than a couple of weeks ago, because I talked about it on the morning news show. Binotto tried to sidestep some stuff tactically by saying, "Well, Mercedes make mistakes too." But the problem is, I feel like Mercedes' tactical mistakes are obvious with hindsight, whereas Ferrari ones are immediate even before they're doing them. You know Leclerc or Sainz coming into the pit is the wrong choice. Whereas with Mercedes, 10 laps after they've done it, you go, oh, that was a bad call, you know. So I don't think it really holds much weight that he's trying to sidestep that. I think it's clear to most people who watch F1 that they've been making really bad decisions for quite a long time tactically. But then again, is that on him? I suppose it is, even if he isn't directly making the calls. He is the boss, he is the figurehead, he is the guy. So I don't think it's good that he thinks things are great. Yeah, I mean, does he actually think that? Does he actually think that? I think they have to replace more team members than only Binotto, says Bashhawk. Charlie says, I think Ferrari as a team have underperformed and their strategy has been very poor. I don't know how much Binotto has to do with that, but he's the team principal and ultimately he is accountable indeed. Carl says, I don't think he should go, but the strategist definitely should. Ferrari have chopped and changed their team principles rather a lot over the last 5 to 6 seasons. Consistency is key. And yeah, I mean, look, if you look at the likes of Mercedes and Red Bull, consistency within those teams is what's brought them success. Some would argue that's one of the reasons why Mercedes dropped back this season. They lost staff to Aston Martin and to Red Bull, quite a few staff to Red Bull, I believe. So you're probably right on that. So what they're saying, first of all, they're talking about the tactical side of things, but also an interesting one. Now, this is take this with a pinch of salt because I'm translating an Italian publication, but indicating, sorry, there were reliability limits and strategic management errors that led to a sudden collapse and a relationship not always very fluid with Leclerc. So, I mean, again, I realise that sounds a little bit disjointed maybe in English, but to me, that reads like Leclerc hasn't been happy with Binotto and probably vice versa, and it's been a little bit fractious, their relationship, because of reliability limits and strategic management errors. And we've heard many times this season that the engine has been turned down with the Ferrari, or they've done this with the Ferrari, or they've done that with the Ferrari because they're afraid it would break down. And we have heard that quite a few times this season. So it sounds legit to me. It does sound quite legit, and knowing how much, sorry, who said it, Cal, how much they've chopped and changed, it makes sense that Ferrari would be looking at this. Leclerc has thrown the car off all by himself, so it needs to go both ways to build something stronger. Yeah, I agree. Now, potential replacements that are being touted. These reading like it's this journalist, this I've not heard of him, Leo Torini, but the article says he's very well connected in Maranello. So just the same as you do with football, I guess you get your F1 journos who've got a bit of an inside line. He has said he thinks Frederic Vaseur, who is the current Alfa Romeo team principal, he thinks that he is a primary candidate for the job because he was Leclerc's first team principal in F1, and he is a good friend of Nicholas Todt, manager of the Monegasque Oh, so I guess he's manager of the actual Ferrari. This is the thing. This is the thing as well. It Leclerc is highly thought of within Ferrari as as I don't know how to, not as a commodity, just as a driver. Leclerc is what Ferrari want more so than I don't know, K-Mag at Haas, or I don't know. I'm trying to think of drivers. It's almost like Leclerc is Ferrari, Ferrari is Leclerc. They're very intertwined. They've got a lot of history and stuff. So it's like with these statements, Ferrari are putting Leclerc above the team principal, which I think is a dangerous game. It's a dangerous game, I think. Bring back the Bergamo Bullet. John is a big fan of Giovinazzi. I can't say I agree. I never have agreed, but I really like Mick Schumacher, and a lot disagree with me. So, um, and so Frederic Vaseur is one who they're putting forward because of the relationship with Leclerc. Ferrari think Vaseur would get the best out of Leclerc, and he would manage the team more effectively than Binotto is. And I think there's some weight to that. I think it could happen. Vasseur has been around the paddock a long time, and yeah, he knows Leclerc very, very well. So, what do we think to that? Now, the question in the chat there on the poll was, should Binotto go? And we have currently got 53% yes, so it's close. First time I come across, it's great to see you talk about Ferrari. Love to hear your cheers, David. Appreciate that, dude. Appreciate that, dude. Sam doesn't want Mattia and Fred to come in. Mick's better than Giovinazzi. Oh, John will be all over that. John will be all over that. And there is another suggestion. Now, let me get this right. Antonio Coletta is being put forward as well, who manages Ferrari in GT racing. So apparently he's been very successful managing the GT side of things. Of course, Ferrari is much bigger than simply Formula One. While it is their primary thing, Ferrari are all over GT racing globally. So he would be a good shout as well. I won't pretend I know anything about the guy. I don't know anything about the guy. But if a long-time journalist close to Maranello is putting forward Fred Vasseur and Antonio Coletta, you've got to think that he knows what he's talking about, and I'm just bringing you that news. But he says the man who manages success of Ferrari in the GT sector. So it's an interesting one. What do you think? Do you think he deserves longer, Binotto? Do you think he should have another season? What do we think in chat? Now, I've been very binary with my question. So David says, yeah, Binotto out. Albon is better than Gio and Mick, Sam says. Agree, Albon's better than both. Mattia out right now. I'm kind of a little on the fence with it. I'm a little on the fence with it. I think for some reason Binotto has said publicly everything's fine, which it clearly isn't, which is a weird statement to make, but then can he really go out and say everything's bad? They really need to look at their processes for making tactical and strategic choices, don't they? And how they look at that, because they're so obvious. They're so obvious my 10-year-old daughter could make better strategic choices. When you've got your drivers screaming at you not to box or to box, and then they ignore them. It's very weird, like sometimes it works. Sometimes it works, like this weekend, a very good case, a very good example of listening to the team because they have more data was Lewis Hamilton, right? when he was told to box for softs near the end to cover Perez's undercut, Lewis, understandably in his position, pretty much screamed down the radio, "Why my tyres are good, my tyres are good," and Bono, his engineer, just said, "No, Lewis, box, box." And then he explained afterwards it was to cover the undercut from Perez. So sometimes we do have to take driver input with a pinch of salt, because the engineers really do have a bigger picture view of what's actually going on in the Grand Prix, and that's important to remember. But so many times this season, and the problem Ferrari have got is, every time Sainz or Leclerc are called into the pits, they'll be second guessing whether it's the right choice. Every time. And that's taking mental capacity away from their primary job of driving. And that is it takes away a little bit of their raw pace, when really, 90% of the time, Max Verstappen is just full beans. He'll report that his tyres are good, that his tyres are bad, that they're going off, yeah. But when, they all can be a bit argumentative, but by and large, he trusts the team, but then goes mad after and whatever. But you know what I mean? I feel like there's just a bad vibe in that situation at Ferrari at the moment. So it's a bit of a shame. I like Binotto, but they spent more than Mercedes several times, yet being nowhere. They make bad strategy calls, etc. Binotto is the top guy. I said he needed to do something this season. The issue with Ferrari is more than just the guy at the top, but I give Binotto one more season, a chance to learn from their mistakes. Yeah. It's like they choose what strat. Now, the thing is, I think part of it is a little harsh. I will just say this quickly. Please do make sure you've hit a like on the stream, guys, and please do subscribe to the channel, because I go live 9 a.m. Monday to Friday with the latest Formula One news, and then there's going to be extra video content around that as well, and already made videos and stuff if you want to go back and check that out. So please do hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. But I do feel it's a bit harsh, because this season is an improvement. I think if we look at it, it is. I could be misremembering, but this season is an improvement. So, I am. It is an improvement. So, are Ferrari being too harsh? Are we being too harsh? I don't know. Now I've just thought about it. Ferrari have improved to be where they are with the regulation changes. I think the decision, a big decision that Ferrari made to stop development on the 22 car, may come back to bite them in Abu Dhabi, because I think it's mathematically possible for Mercedes to overtake them in the constructors. That could be the bigger problem for Binotto. But is it a masterstroke that he has taken the choice to stop development on the 22 car months ago if they retain second place in the constructors and they've got a leap onto next season's car? Who knows? But that is another way of looking at it. I think that would be more costly to his job if they lose second place in the constructors, because it has to be performance based, doesn't it? Because the very reason we're talking about it is race performance, and constructors is the one that matters, really. If they lose second in the constructors after being so dominant early season, dominant up there with Red Bull early season, that wouldn't be good. Considering where Mercedes were, they had best part of a second over Mercedes. If Mercedes beat Ferrari in this season in the constructors, it's borderline embarrassing, really, because they shouldn't be close, should they? But we can look at multiple things. Leclerc Imola, Leclerc France. We can look at Monaco, I think, with pit strategy. Other races with pit strategy. So there are many. It is a multifaceted question, but let's have a look at what the poll says here. It's very close. It's very close. 52% said yes, Binotto should go. 47% said no, he should stay. So it is close, and I'm a bit in the middle there as well. I'm not entirely sure. So with Ferrari stopping development, do you think they will get ahead of Mercedes and Red Bull? Don't know, David. Don't know, David. I might make a video about this. Later on today, where I talk about it if people would like that. Because I'm actually not sure. I'd have to have a think. If they lose second, it's much more errors from Charles and reliability problems than... Agreed, Carl. Agreed. It's consistency, but if you win multiple races and Mercedes only win one, should be easily second. It's crazy, isn't it? I noticed probably 4 or 5 races ago that Mercedes were creeping up on Ferrari, and I was like, nah, surely not, but they're right there. They're right there. They really are. Which is crazy to me. If we really think back to the beginning of the season, I do think at the beginning, Ferrari had the fastest car over 1 lap, but it was unreliable. I think Red Bull still had the best package. They just had to unlock it and understand it. And Mercedes were just nowhere. They were nowhere. They were so legitimately terrible at the beginning of the season by their standards, right? They were nowhere. So for anyone else to be near Ferrari is madness to me. So yeah, that's true. Lewis was testing a lot of setup mid-season and lost a lot of points. George kept it ticking over. Yeah. Charles lost a lot of points. Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy that anyone's close to them. But there you go, guys. That is your morning dose of news from TSK F1. Please do make sure you've hit the like button on the stream because it really, really does help. We're seeing great growth here on the channel and I'm very appreciative of it. Please do make sure you've hit the subscribe button as well. I'm not sure where it is. I think it's somewhere over there if you're watching, I think. Thank you very, very much. I'm about to go live over on Facebook Gaming on Pit Lane Sim Racing with F1 Manager. So I will be back 9 AM tomorrow morning with more news. I'll probably put out a video later on today on some Formula 1 subject or another. But thank you so much for joining me. Please do make sure you're subscribed because I'll be back in the morning with more news. Thank you very much, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Cheers. Bye-bye.